On the night of January 3rd, 2012, lives in Little Rock, Arkansas would change forever. Daniel Hill and his girlfriend Edwina Brown were entering into her mother, Betty Martin's apartment on Green Mountain Drive. Two men ambushed them as they made their way into the apartment. Edwina's mother was already home. Quentin Bernard Jones and Ivor Gordon rushed into the apartment behind the couple, shooting Edwina in the shoulder, and Daniel began to fight with the shooter and as a result was also shot. Edwina ran and hid under the chair her mother was sitting in, and the gunman ran away. Edwina was rushed to the hospital and survived, but tragically, Daniel Hill died on the scene. Not only was Edwina shot and her boyfriend was killed in front of her just days earlier, Edwina's mother Betty died 3 days later on January the 7th due to health complications. It was rumored that the stress from the shooting scene in her home days prior played a part in her death. Daniel was a 22-year-old bright young man with his whole life ahead of him. Edwina was a 26-year-old mother of twins at the time and was currently not with the father of the children, Danny Brown. It was rumored that Danny and Edwina had a rocky relationship, and when Edwina moved on, Danny gave her and her new boyfriend a hard time. He called in false reports and threatened them repeatedly. It appears he did not want Edwina to move on with her life and be happy. He was going to do whatever it took to make sure of that. Going back to January the 4th, the day after the shooting, Quentin Jones was arrested, and eventually so was Ivor. They told detectives that a man named Danny Brown hired them to murder Edwina and Daniel if he got in the way. Ivor Gordon said Danny promised him a car worth $10,000 as payment. In the months following the death of Daniel, something no one expected to happen happened. Edwina was the only surviving victim of the January 3rd shooting. She was set to testify and was the key piece of evidence that the prosecution had. But that all changed when she became increasingly antagonistic towards the prosecution office. She was sitting with Danny's family during court hearings. Recordings of jail phone calls between Edwina Martin and Danny Brown were played, proving that she did not intend to cooperate with prosecutors, and the judge withdrew the charges against Danny Brown due to lack of evidence in his involvement. Edwina and Danny Brown had gotten married. The marriage continued and all was well, so we thought, until March 27th, 2023. A call was made to a home on Fairfield in the afternoon of a shooting with a female victim. The victim was transported to the hospital where she was later pronounced deceased. As details emerged and the victim's name was released, the city wanted answers. Days later, a suspect's name was released, and it was Danny. He was on the run and he was not found until April 17th when he was arrested for the murder of his wife, Edwina. Stay tuned for the full story and all the details this Sunday evening at 8 p.m. I'm going to be interviewing Daniel Hill's sister.
Be considered armed and highly dangerous.
On March 27th, around 4 in the afternoon, police say Danny Brown went to his estranged wife's house on Fairley Drive in Little Rock.
The information we have is that Danny Brown entered the house. I guess maybe an argument ensued. He allegedly shot his wife, and she later succumbed to those injuries at a nearby hospital.
It's been over a week since that happened, and police are looking to get Brown behind bars, including the U.S. Marshal's Office, who has been asked to help.
Well, of course, we want to do this as safely as possible. We don't want anyone to get hurt, including Danny Brown. Preferably, we'd rather Danny Brown just turn himself in, do the right thing.
Police have gotten close to arresting him, but they say he's made it clear he will not be taken in quietly.
One of our biggest tips, I guess, came from Danny Brown himself. He actually called the Little Rock Police Department, gave a statement to them, and then made the statement that he would basically either harm himself or harm others if he was ever cornered by, anyone, especially law enforcement.
Danny Brown was arrested by U.S. Marshals at an apartment complex in Dallas, Texas. Brown is accused of going to his estranged wife's house on March 27th, where he shot and killed her. Marshals tracked Brown to a Dallas apartment over the weekend.
When they got there, Brown attempted to jump off the balcony, but then saw more officers and law enforcement on the ground. A short time later, he surrendered to police. He'll now be extradited back here to Arkansas.